Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for February the 20th, 2024. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilors Chandler,
Present.
Shada, Wolf,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Weatherholt,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune,
Present.
and Mayor Graham.
Present.
We
Thank
have
you.
a quorum with everyone.
Okay, great. Okay. Council, next item is approval of the agenda. You've had an opportunity to review the agenda, so I would look for a motion to approve it.
I move approval. A second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Oops. Do you need? Okay, sorry, hang on.
Voting is open.
Okay, let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you. The agenda is approved. The next item is public comment on non-agenda items. This is time when anyone in the audience is welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. I know we have a couple people who have expressed an interest. I'll take them in the order they were received. Dole Grabinick.
Good evening, Council. I'm Dole Grabinick, and I have a couple of words to say to you tonight. I'm going to read it, which is the first time I've ever had to read the whole thing to you, but I will.
Dole, since we customarily ask for a person's address, perhaps if you just
Dole
give us your
Grabinick.
title.
You bet. City Engineer, 1280 Foothills Farmway, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Hello, City Council. I'm Dole Grabinick, City Engineer. I recently returned from a funeral in Missouri. We said goodbye to our last grandparent, and with it came the end of an era of swimming in their pool and spending time playing cards with Nana. During that time, I realized the importance of saying goodbyes and providing closure. With that said, as you all may or may not know, my time with Manitou is coming to an end, as this is my last week with Manitou and my last city council meeting. I started a new job on Monday. When I left CDOT to join Manitou Springs over 4 years ago, I had several peers that thought I was crazy. No one ever leaves CDOT. Once you start, you generally retire from there. But I was ready for a new challenge and new opportunity. Manitou sure delivered on that opportunity and challenge. Joining Manitou has been a wonderful experience for me, and I'm very glad I joined the city. As you all remember, when I first started with the city, I was asked to work on a little thing called the incline. The early morning visitors, the intense amount of traffic, and the general disrespect the visitors showed to our city had to change and improve. After months and months of research, meetings, parking modeling, and getting smeared in the newspaper, we all agreed and arrived at the free incline reservation system. It was probably the most stressful few months of my working career, but we got through it all together. I remember how many non-Manitou residents were frustrated by the new reservation system, but after enough time, it's become a great success at managing and providing a quality experience for its users. It's an experience I'll remember for a long time. During that time, several other large projects kicked off, including Becker's Bridge, the MAPS project, Creek Walk Trail, and Soda Springs Park, to name a few. All the projects had their challenges, but they are built today, and I'm proud to be a part of every single one of them. In a small city such as Manitou, you need to wear multiple hats to be fully effective. In that spirit, I volunteered to write several grants. Of the 9 I authored, the city successfully received funds for 8 of them. Although I didn't have much experience in grant writing when I joined Manitou, I have developed into a solid grant writer, and I'm grateful I get to take that experience and skill set with me on my next adventure. To City Council, I want to thank you for the respect and support you offered me during the last 4+ years. There have been plenty of difficult conversations and challenging questions, but I've always felt supported by you all. Whenever I've presented or answered a question, I always felt heard and acknowledged. That doesn't mean you always liked my answer, but you respected and allowed me to share my opinions and recommendations. I appreciate your contributions and leadership you provided to me, so thank you. I would also like to publicly recognize how much I've enjoyed working for Roy Cheney. The number of projects and challenges that we've worked through together has been a real highlight of my time here and my career. His ability to take a complicated issue, simplify it, calm it down, and then work through the issues is impressive. I will miss his leadership, mentorship, and friendship. Lastly, I feel connected to this quirky little town. The longer I've been here, the more I've come to understand and appreciate Manitou's appeal. Manitou is a wonderful city with a rich history, with strong leadership, and a spirit of protecting Manitou's culture, all while making various improvements. So to everyone involved with the city that I've had the pleasure to work with, thank you. I've enjoyed every day here, and the next time I am in town, it will be as a visitor, but I'll get to scan around the city and see all the projects and improvements I got to be a part of. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dole. Normally, council does not respond to comments that are made at this portion of the meeting and non-agenda items, but I think under the circumstances, it might be appropriate to allow council to make comments if anyone so desires. Nancy?
Yeah, Dole, when Alex left, I was so happy that he had an opportunity to come and say that he was leaving and say goodbye, because I think that, and you in particular are one of the people that we've worked with so closely, and I personally have worked with you so closely, and I have enjoyed it very, very much. And I will miss you greatly. And I know you'll do great things at your next assignment. So best of luck, and thanks for all you've done for Manitou, and don't be a stranger. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Julie?
Ditto. Thank you so much, Joel. Where are you going? Are we allowed to know?
I'm going to go to the city of Castle Pines.
Well, good luck and enjoy.
All right. Anyone else? Judith?
Dole, we're going to miss you. Yours will be really tough shoes to fill. And really been a privilege to work with you for the last 4 years. And I wish you and your family the best of luck. And I do hope you're not a stranger and that you come to visit us and do see those projects that all have your special handprint on in our town. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Michelle?
Joel, I just want to say thank you so much. The community meetings that you've been to, you've always been prepared. And I know it felt like you were attacked, and I really appreciated your composure. And so good luck on your next adventure, and we're going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie?
Well, I know Dole's a Makerspace member at the Art Center, and he's going to miss our laser cutter and 3D printer. So I know we will see him around. So, but you will be
Thanks.
missed. Thank you.
Sounds good. And Dole, I would also like to extend my appreciation. I think you were able to raise the bar here in the level of proficiency we had in the public works, the capital improvements projects that we undertook, and communicating those to the public, which is not easy. We had some major challenges. I think in the last 4 years, we have probably gotten as much done as the city has accomplished in maybe a 10-year period, perhaps even longer. So some major things got done. You faced the challenges with us. You did a good job. We appreciate it. Thanks. Don't be a stranger.
Thank you very much.
And next is Ray Ferguson. Ray, if you want to come forward, and if you'll give us your name and address before you start. I'm sorry, and speak into the mic. Yeah, turn it on when the light comes on green, and then get about 3 inches from the mic. This is being recorded and broadcast.
Okay, Ray Ferguson, 634 Rexton Avenue. I had talked to Mayor Graham. This is regarding the water agreement on Rexton. You guys approved that last month. I'd been talking to John about that for the last year. I was heavily involved in that when we did that 20 years ago. I wasn't able to come last month. And so I just wanted to be here just real quickly, just give you a little history on that, the water flow on Rexton Creek. It was started back in 2001, September, in response to being notified by CSU that the pipeline down Ruxton was dangerous and needed to be replaced. And we were concerned about that, then less so than Ruxton Creek was drying up. That was back during the drought. The group of Ruxton neighbors met with CSU for over a year and didn't get anywhere. If Manitou Springs wants water, we have to pay for it. All my neighbors, everybody with that, including my wife, just got fed up with CSU and just getting being browbeat and thrown around. So Mayor Morrison appointed myself, Dr. David Corpenning, and Mayor Bill Kerner to go to CSU to work with them. It took another 2 years of working with CSU. We'd go around and around, and if we wanted water, it came around to we were going to have to pay for it until we were able to resurrect on Ruxton Creek, one of the oldest water rights that we have, and it goes back to 1861. And so basically we were able to put that into a 20-year agreement that you guys just ratified again for another 25 years. We get 0.1 CFS of water April 1st through October 31st. And that's at no charge. If Manitou wants more water, we can get an additional 0.15 CFS, and it comes out to about $2,000 a year. Back in 2004, if we had to pay for it, you're basically paying for the pumping from the 33rd Street up to the Mesa plant. It was a big deal back then. It's a big deal now, but we wouldn't have water in Ruxton if we didn't fight for it, 20 years ago. And we had a lot of help. Jim McGrady, he worked with Fountain and Aurora, helped us resurrect that water right. The citizens up there put in over $2,000 to hire a water attorney. But it was perseverance. I guess it was just perseverance and being patient, and good things can come from that. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of history of that water. And it is something that I check on the very last house on Ruxton. And if we don't have water, I've let John know, and mayors and CSU officials in the past, hey, what's going on? How come that water's not running? So I don't think we'll ever have to pay for it, to be honest with you. The flow's been sufficient. So anyway, that's it. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Let's see. Those are the only individuals who indicated that they wanted to speak before the meeting. If we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this point, we'll still entertain comments from the public. Okay. If not, let's go ahead and move on. The next is the consent calendar. We've got 7 items on it tonight. First, the presentation of warrants. Second, consider reappointing Christina Groh to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as a regular member. Consider reappointing Rebecca Wood to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as a regular member. Consider reappointing Andrea Satella to the Open Space Advisory Committee as a regular member. 5, approve the contract with Red Valve Company Incorporated for the passive mixing system for the new Water Mesa tank. 6, approve the contract with D2 Demolition for the demolition of the Dillon Motel property. And 7, we want to hear that we accept the status of the Manitou Springs Volunteer Fire Department's pension fund report. If any member of council would like to discuss any or all of these items, we can take them off and discuss them separately. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve and accept as a group.
Mayor,
Yes.
I don't want to discuss an item, but I just want to point out a minor correction that needs to be made on item number 6, the contract with D2 Demo and Dirt. So
Okay.
if we need to pull it, fine. It's just a correction that I want to bring up that needs to be made.
Okay. I'll look just a minute. I'll look to the city clerk. Would it be better if we take this off and discuss it separately? Do you think, or 6 and 1/2 dozen another?
Exactly. It depends on the nature of the correction
Okay.
and whether it's.
Yeah, Judith, could you elaborate?
It's a very minor correction, but it's a $9,000 one. It's on page 2. It's paragraph 3 compensation, paragraph A. The numerical amount is correct at 69,949.38, but the written amount is listed as 69,900. And I just wanted that none to be changed to a 9. So those two are the same.
Okay, so it's just a real minor typo.
It's a minor typo, but it's money. So
Yeah,
that always catches my attention.
could you get us that location again, please?
It's page 2. It is item 3, compensation, paragraph A. The first sentence is listed as $69,949.38.
Okay, right. Yeah, I see it there in the second line. Okay.
And that's it.
But it's an obvious typo. If council has no objections, we'll take that correction. Julie?
I'd like to pull item number 6 to discuss the contract.
Okay. All righty. Does anyone want to take anything else off for separate discussion? Okay, so then I would ask council to consider, and since Judith's point is with the same item 6, I would ask council for a motion to accept and approve consent calendar, all the items except for item 6, which we'll discuss separately. Okay, motion by Councilor Wolf.
Second.
Second by Councilor Shada. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. So the consent calendar less item 6 is approved. We will now discuss item 6, the contract with D2 Demolition. Julie, you had concerns. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question. I just wanted to confirm that they're not going to demo the building that we decided shouldn't be demoed, and that they are going to demo the building right up on the street, the small building. Is that in there?
So neither Juan nor Roy is here, so I'll talk about that. Yeah, they will keep the 2 buildings that you said you wanted to keep, the long one for the restrooms and then the other one, the house, and then all the rest is being demoed.
Oh, thank you. And also, I didn't walk the property or anything, but was there a decision made that's set forth in this contract about preserving the trees that we wanted preserved? Are those identified?
Yep, we're preserving all the trees. There's one, I think, that's in here because I asked about it, and it's one that they cannot preserve, but all the others are being preserved.
Those are my only concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Judith, we would just be addressing that typo, so that was your concern. Do we have any other concerns with item 6? If not, I would seek a motion to approve it, subject to the correction of that, the word none to 9.
I'll move to approve the contract with D2 Demo and Dirt.
Okay,
do
we have a motion?
With the correction.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Councilor Shada. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much, council. Oh, yeah, Nancy, please.
Just a quick question. I was under the impression in contracts from now on in these sorts of contracts that there would be provisions for protecting the existing trees. And I didn't see, I saw the one thing in here on the one tree, and then there was a provision about additional trees coming down would have to be assessed and determined, but I didn't see anything about protecting the existing trees during demolition.
Yeah, I don't know. I will have to ask Matthew on that one because we usually do it internally, but I will ask Matthew to ensure the trees are protected.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Is that a satisfactory answer, Nancy? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on then to item G1. It's a presentation. Major update to Plan Manitou, be our introduction, and this will be presented by our planning director, Hannah. And I would mention to council that normally we would do this in a work session environment, but given the fact that Hannah's going to be leaving us the 1st of March, we thought we'd better get it done tonight. And then we would also have this presentation under our belts when we go into the all-day budget and strategy session this coming Saturday. All right. Hannah, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Graham and members of City Council. So for the record, Hannah Van Den Wagen with the City Planning Department. And just to kind of prime the discussion tonight, I apologize if the email didn't go out to everybody. I thought I had everyone on the list, so I apologize if it didn't get to everybody in time. But we have the presentation tonight, and really what we're hoping to dive into is just an introduction on what this project is and where we've gone so far and where we're hoping to go in the next couple months. So really it's a question answer and then to get some direction on the work groups as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to our consultants. You might recognize a couple of these folks. They worked on the 2018 plan. And so they have a lot of knowledge on Manitou prior to this comp plan update. And one of the individuals is also working on our special district study. So both projects will speak to each other too. So with that, I'll turn it on over.
Thank you, Hannah. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Darcy White with Clarion Associates. I'm the overall project manager for this effort for the consultant team, and I was the project manager on the 2018 plan as well. Very excited to be here and to see all the progress that you all have made over the last 6 years. So as Hannah mentioned, we really wanted to just give you a quick overview of how the project is.
Could you get the mic a little closer? These seem to work best when you're about 3 inches from the microphone. And I think we can hear you okay in the room, but this is being live streamed and it'll be recorded. So
You bet.
for the
How's that?
benefit of external people and future generations. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So we are, all right, we wanted to give you a little background on the project. And Hannah's going to talk a little bit about the packet that she sent out in terms of the implementation status update. And then also want to talk about public engagement and get some feedback there. Andy's going to jump in and Matt are both going to jump in as well, and I'll let them introduce themselves when we get to that point. So in terms of okay. So overall objectives for this project, I think one of the things that we want to communicate from the start is that this is not meant to be a start from scratch effort. It's a relatively recent plan. These plans are really meant to be 10 to 20-year documents. So a long range plan, but it is good practice, as with your other plans, to take a look at them and see what's working, what's not, particularly related to implementation. So we're going to talk more about that tonight, but I think in the course of working through this update, we will be making some targeted changes, primarily in terms of the data and the trends that inform the plan. We're actually going to be converting a lot of the maps into an online format, kind of a story map format, so the information that's in the background of the plan is more accessible for the public and for you guys to use. And then we're going to be looking at some of that trends data. So just kind of getting things freshened up in terms of the overall foundation of the plan. We're also going to be asking the public just to check in on the vision and goals and make sure that they still make sense. We think so based on conversations we've had so far, but that's really kind of the opportunity that presents itself as part of a process like this. So we will have an opportunity for folks to kind of check in on that. But we are going to be spending most of our time really thinking about how the plan can be structured in a way that is really most effective for you all in terms of implementation. I think when the plan was completed, it was an ambitious plan. There were a long list of strategies in the document. And I think there were so many ideas that came out of the process. We ended up with the long-term action plan because folks said, we really want to keep these things on the table and bring them forward. And I think the amount of effort that's gone into implementation so far is really remarkable for a community of your size. I think with that you have, commend you on that. But I think the goal with this is really how can we make this plan more strategic going forward? Manitou is a very engaged community, lots of ideas, things that change from week to week, month to month. How can we help provide more clarity for council, for staff, for the public in terms of what those near-term priorities should be over the next 3 to 5 years. So it's really going to be a chance to kind of step back, see what you've accomplished, but also focus on where you want to go next. So that's really what we want to talk about tonight and get your feedback on kind of what's worked well, what's not, what you hope to get out of this process. So in terms of overall timeline, this is a fairly brisk effort, I would say, about a year-long process. We really just kicked off things in early January. We have spent the afternoon meeting with the different departments and kind of getting a download from them on kind of their perspectives on different aspects of the plan. We have some additional meetings planned next month, but really kind of 3 phases here. The technical side of things, which is really the mapping and the data side that we're working on. When we get into phase 2, and Andy will talk a little bit more about this, that's really where we want to kind of roll up the sleeves and really talk about, kind of what the next batch of near-term priorities should be. So in terms of the actual timing of public engagement events, we have some initial ideas, but I think despite the fact that we're bummed that Hannah's going to be leaving us and we're going to lose our fearless leader, I think we are very committed to keeping the project moving and kind of keeping that momentum that we're starting to build. So we need to make a few minor adjustments to that as we go forward, but I generally do stick with that timeline overall. So we will, I think tentatively, Andy will talk about some of the actual timing of the events and, kind of where the public can expect to plug in. But the goal would be, end of this year or early next year for adoption of the updated plan. So I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions about just process in general before we jump in on kind of the implementation and public engagement a little bit deeper?
Julie?
Oh, in terms of process, I don't know at what point of the presentation it would be appropriate, but I wanted to suggest adding another person to one of your focus groups.
And we do have some time.
Process or?
We're going to talk about engagement here in a little bit, and we definitely
Okay.
plan to talk about that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Continue, please.
Okay. I accidentally clicked a button and now we're on the wrong side. If we could go one back. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly touch on the 2023 progress report that I put together. I really wanted to focus on, since Clarion and team are already going to be putting together updates on data that you'll see in upcoming presentations, I really wanted to focus on an update on where we are with the priority actions in the long project list. And so, please let me know after you review it if I misunderstood one or if we did complete one or maybe we didn't. I can always fix it. But of the 103 priority actions that are in Plan Manitou, 57 of those are completed. 27 of those are ongoing efforts that never really have an end date, and only 19 of those are considered incomplete at this time. I just want to emphasize that that's incredible. That's a Herculean effort right there. And those items were not small items. And some of them were massive efforts that got taken on very quickly. So I do want to emphasize that although Plan Manitou might be difficult to use at times, the implementation has definitely been there. And then on top of that, there's a 20-ish page list of what we call long-term actions. So the priority actions had a general horizon of the next 3 to 5 years, and the long-term actions looked at more 10 to 20 years into the future. And of that 20-ish page list, we've already completed 28 of those, and we have 21 that are already underway. So according to the plan that was adopted, we're kind of ahead of schedule. So I just wanted to emphasize that that's really impressive based on my experience and what I've seen with comp plan implementation. I would say Manitou, with the resources it has and the staff it has blown the other cities that I've worked for out of the water. So I just wanted to communicate that. And I know that 2023 progress report is relatively long, but I'm happy to hear any feedback that you have on it as you review it.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Matt Prosser. I'm a principal with Economic and Planning Systems. We're a land use economics firm that's supporting Clarion on this effort. I personally worked with Darcy and Clarion on the previous plan. As well, our firm is working on the special district project being led by one of our principals, Dan Guimond, with coordination between the two of us on these two projects. So what I'm gonna do is to hope prompt a little bit of discussion about implementation of the current plan, and then what you'd like to see go into the next iteration, what we're sort of calling 2.0. So we have sort of two prompt questions on the screen, and I think it'd be a good place to start in terms of thinking back over the last 4 or 5 years. You know, what were some of those challenging aspects of implementing the plan and some of the big moves you've been able to accomplish within the city? So we can kind of understand how we can better set you up for implementation going forward. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to facilitate or defer to you as well in terms of how to solicit input from the council.
Okay. Well, council, if you have any questions at this point, we can go ahead and ask them. I think overall it'd be best to get through the presentation and then entertain questions then. But if there's anything council has that's really apropos for the moment, let's go ahead and get those questions asked. If not, let's push on. So let's go ahead with presentation, and then we'll come back around and probably have a little more questions and interaction then.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Andy Rutz. I'm with Crescendo Planning and Design, urban planning, urban design, community engagement focused, and supporting Clarion and Darcy's team on this effort. If we can flip to the next slide. You know, as Darcy mentioned, I think one of the things that we're really excited about this update is that Manitou already has a really remarkably engaged community, which helps make these conversations exciting for a consultant team and for city staff. If you can flip to the next one, it seems like this isn't. Got it. Basically, the way we set the stage for how we're going to engage the community is by creating a public engagement plan at the start. And we've got one that's in draft form right now. That's definitely subject to kind of malleability and change and finesse, as Darcy said, especially like the timeframes that we've started to lay out. But it really builds on the foundation that the citywide public engagement plan has. And then some of the lessons learned from the 2017-2018 Plan Manitou process. That's a document that we'll ultimately finalize based on input from you all, from Planning Commission, and from our working group members, which we'll kind of touch on here in a second. Darcy started to lay out kind of our overall schedule, and I think the big piece to emphasize is that we've broken the process down into 3 phases, as Darcy said, sort of ending at the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year in terms of plan adoption. That first phase is a lot of kind of technical analysis, reflection, as Hannah mentioned, on kind of the implementation successes that the community's had already. As Matt started to prompt, you know, what are some of the lessons learned by the community and by elected officials on maybe what were some of the struggles in implementation and how we can position those better this time around. That second phase then is to kind of take and start to filter all of the goals and visions from the community, maybe some of those outstanding implementation items, and figure out which are the new or the refreshed kind of short-term, medium-term, long-term priorities, and then identify if there are any new implementation needs that the community's had in the last 4 or 5 years. Ultimately, then we'll package that as a draft and final plan. Importantly, at each stage or each phase of this process, we're intending to have a pretty robust amount of community output or community engagement. And that'll take a variety of different forms. So I think one lesson like that we've learned, especially coming out of the pandemic, is that folks have a, finite amount of time to participate in processes like this. And so it's in everybody's best interest to try and provide a variety of touch points, whether that's different times of day, whether that's different formats of meetings, so that folks can kind of plug in as they're most comfortable. And so we'll have community meetings and workshops, which will be the kind of larger format, really interactive opportunities with a broad spectrum of public participants. We'll have working group meetings. I think you all are probably pretty familiar with just the breadth of topics that a comprehensive plan has within it. And so the working group meetings really allow us to have kind of more topic specific, smaller format conversations. And I'll touch a little bit on the role of those in a moment. We'll be doing updates at each phase of the process with City Council and Planning Commission to keep you apprised of the progress. Also get your advice on, ways we should either continue momentum or start to pivot an approach. We do know that, some folks want to stay apprised of the process, but maybe, don't have the time in their day to attend some of these more formal in-person meetings. So we want to provide opportunities and outlets for folks to weigh in from home, maybe at work at their convenience online through surveys. And then maybe the most effective one, especially in an engaged community like Manitou, is pop-up events. Basically finding opportunities where there's already a really well-attended kind of community event or celebration and making sure that we can be there and just meet folks where they are. And then in terms of the role of the working groups themselves, as I mentioned, and you can see on this slide off to the right, this is kind of the listing of plan elements or topics that are addressed within the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has a daunting role in the city in that it's providing direction and a vision, like Darcy said, for that 10 to 20-year horizon on pretty much everything that happens within the city. And so what the working groups allow us to do is to have smaller format conversations with a group of community members and stakeholders who may be really interested in those topics or have a specific technical expertise in them. It allows us to get, more nuanced information from the community on priorities, on implementation techniques that might have traction. And it also helps us encourage those folks to kind of become liaisons to the community. So to reach out to their fellow community members and ask questions about, the lived experience of other community members, and also start to become champions of the plan adoption and plan implementation ultimately. So it's really helping us vet the updates kind of at a smaller scale and also vet the approach of how we have those conversations with the broader community. And I think with that, Hannah had a couple questions that she was asked that she wanted to address on the working groups.
Thank you, Andy. So with the working groups, what I was really trying to provide was a first draft to kind of bounce ideas off of. By no means is it a final draft. And these individuals have not been notified. So we have an opportunity to kind of add folks, remove folks, whatever the city council sees fit. So with that, I'm happy to take, or you can also email me or call me, but also take your nominations. How we came up with this first draft were nominations from department heads. So department heads are in the community also, and they're often taking calls or having conversations at their front counters with folks in the community. And so that's how we got to our current list. But yes, I'm happy to take some other nominations.
Okay, so I guess at this point, council would be a good opportunity to ask some questions and have a little dialogue here. And at some point, I also see that we have the planning commission chair here, so I'll give him an opportunity to speak as well, because he's got a lot of experience as well. But so council, let's just kind of, let's go ahead and ask questions, make comments, that sort of thing. John, you want to go?
Yes, with regard to the 2023 progress report, I think a really good place to start with that is to take this thing and put this in like sort of like a live online spreadsheet in which actually has links to things that say they're completed and maybe the things that are incomplete. If we've got any kind of documentation as to why it's not complete or whether it's in process or whatever, I think that would be really helpful to kind of start with this kind of a grid, so that people can start kind of navigating kind of where we are, because I like the idea of, taking off on where we were before, refreshing it, all those kind of things that you talked about. But it seems like to me that this document needs to be something more than a static document, something that's a little more live, something I have a feeling that, as we go through it, we can kind of discover things and update things, you know what I mean? There are resources that are out there that on first blush, we don't get linked in. So that'd be my first suggestion on that one there, is to kind of start with this as sort of kind of a live working document in which people can go to online and find, and not necessarily, and I don't know, as I'm a big fan of it being in like a PDF format or something like that. It seems like to me it needs to be a little more dynamic or something like that than people downloading a big old hefty PDF format and then navigating the links inside of it. Seems like to me you ought to be able to kind of go to it, see whether there are any updates to it. You know what I mean? Maybe there could be a column that says, most recently updated, so that people know how to kind of navigate and find, what's kind of recently changed. I think that might be really helpful also for the working groups as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Natalie?
Let's see. So the first off, suggestion, let's see. You had a question about, I guess, I don't know, earlier about what worked and didn't work kind of with the original one. And I think we all kind of have at some point throughout the last few years mentioned, like, you can find whatever you want in Plan Manitou. Like, it's almost so general and covers so much that it becomes almost meaningless in how expansive. And so I guess it's that trick of not maybe being too structured, but also allowing for some guts to it, so that there's something we can kind of work with and can help actually guide us, I think would be great. I do have some suggestions for the working group, but I think probably send them to you, because some of them are like, I'd like someone from the library district, but I'm not quite sure who that is. Like, I don't, so it's going to take me a little work, I think, to find the folks that I'm going to recommend for that, but I have some suggestions there. And let's see, strategic priorities. Yeah, I think some of those things will emerge as part of the process, but I will say I'm really excited about this. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Natalie. Other comments? Julie?
I'd like to see Darlene Kennedy invited to join the committee on where is it? Land use and built environment is what is identified on there. She writes ordinances for City of Colorado Springs for their land use development. So she's really expert in that area, and I would love to see her involved.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Judith?
I concur with Counselor Wolf. I actually had a conversation with Darlene Kennedy yesterday and asked her if she would be interested in serving, and if extended an invitation, she would like to serve. Yeah, and I would love to see, the names come before council, so we can either via email or in open session, so that we can really have robust groups. I really appreciate Counselor Shada's spreadsheet idea. However, this is one of those few, I try not to kill trees and create paper, but I've looked through my vast collection of 3 and 4 inch white binders that I've collected on council over the last 4 years, and I don't have a Plan Manitou. And I would like to have a hard copy, because I'm a note taker and a reader, and my intention is to read it from cover to cover again and refresh myself. And so I don't know if there's anyone else on council but myself, but I would appreciate that. I think that Plan Manitou is one of those things that has to change as the time changes, right? And, we're just post a global pandemic, and we have climate change crises and sustainability and environmental things. So I just want also this Plan Manitou to reflect not only what's currently going on in the community, but kind of forecast what that means for us for the next 5 years going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, thank you. I too am very excited about this project. I have some recommendations or suggestions for the committees or whatever you're calling them, people on the committees. And some of them are people that we go to, you know, the usual suspects, so to speak, that you've identified, which is fine. But it seems like it would be helpful to have something of a position description, what your expectations are of these people to serve on these committee in terms of time commitment, you know, length of time, how often the meetings will be, how long the meetings will be, and what the outcomes of the meetings are supposed to be. So I think that that's important. I also think that it would be good to ask the community, you know, publish this via our new PIO and say, hey, we're doing this now, and this is a perfect opportunity for you to get engaged in whatever capacity, and what might you be interested in, and have them submit a paragraph or something on why they would be appropriate for it, and to get a, you know, that they are in fact committed to doing this. We have two existing committees, the Planning Commission and the MAPS, that already exist, that I'm not sure if it's necessary to set up yet another parallel committee for those two, the MAPS being Mobility and Parking Board. And, you know, there were things like education. You just had two education board people, I think. And my reading of Plan Manitou education is much broader than that, than just the school system. So I would look at that. And I'm sure I had a bunch of other things, but I think basically I would like to open it up to the larger community and limit it. You know, ultimately you'd have to limit it, and you can't have, you know, 60 people on one of these committees. But I think it would be good to let people volunteer to do it, as long as they're willing to make that commitment to whatever that expectation is for them. And in terms of the earlier question, I think that there was some credibility issues on the previous Plan Manitou, or the original Plan Manitou, because when the data collection or the data was outlined and how many people participated, how many people supported any given action in that, sometimes there weren't a lot of people. So I think you know, you can't have necessarily a valid and a reliable survey all the time for all of this, but I think we could probably do a little better. And I too am thrilled. I'm a firm believer in plans. And I think that that's how we get as much done as we get done. If you don't have a well thought out plan, you know, Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So, and without a plan, you don't have a roadmap. So that's important. I think one of the another big issues we had is, or that we consistently have in community engagement in Manitou, is people who are late to the table, who aren't, and I have no idea how to fix that, you know, other than going and knocking on everybody's door and explaining everything to them. I know of no other way but that is an issue, that people are late to the table and then the process stops because we get a few people who become very passionate very late in the process. And I'm sure I have some more, but that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And Nancy or anyone, if you have ideas, write them down. I would not be surprised if we're going to have very similar ideas on Saturdays. We probably want to give this a good discussion. Yeah, Nancy, I think there's some good points there. Now, I was looking at the timeline draft. I guess it's slide 5. Not that we need to go back to it, but public engagement, you're anticipating having it in March, July, and in October. July, or really the summer, is a pretty hard time to get much action out of public engagement. I don't see that there's a way around that, but we do have some outdoor events and stuff. So those pop-up things that you talk about, piggybacking on some of our existing exposure, might be, I would guess those might be as effective as trying to schedule a meeting down here. We can do that certainly, but, and it's a similar topic to what Mayor Pro Tem Fortune said. getting the word out, getting people to participate, getting a statistically significant sampling from the population in a timely fashion is a tremendous challenge. I think in looking at the existing Plan Manitou, it seemed like there were guidelines that were being etched in stone based on the responses of 25 people. That's, in a community of almost 5,000 people, that's statistically insignificant. And then when I looked at some of the narrative comments, some of the people weren't even sure what they were voting on, which was a little dispiriting. And I think really, this council, I think, has done quite an admirable job, and staff too. I mean, certainly staff. We've gotten a lot of things done. This year, we're going to get a lot more things done. If at the end of our time, whatever that time is, we can hand the city a real solid plan for the future, that would be tremendous. I've had several meetings in the last year. And I was kind of kibitzing, just listening in the audience, and somebody said, well, we'd have to do this, thus and so, and that'll take 10 years. And the comment was, 10 years, well, there goes that idea. So we kicked the can down the road. In 10 years, the problem is only going to get worse. It wasn't like this is something that was optional. Several of those things were optional, but some of them were not, like, deteriorating infrastructure or changes in our demographics. We've got some time to think about this. So rather than wait till we're in the Titanic and the iceberg is too far for us to maneuver, we need to be thinking ahead. So that is one of my huge concerns. And I think it's an opportunity. I think we could do great work. I think we could have a real solid plan. I think it could be backed up with a sound financial plan. We're going to hear some of that hear quite a lot of that on Saturday, I think. So I'd like it at this point to give Alan Delwich an opportunity to comment. If you want to, Alan. I mean, Alan's our planning commission guy, and he's got a lot of history on this. He served on a lot of committees. So if council has no objections. Yeah, it's just, since we got some tribal wisdom here in the room, let's hear it.
Yeah, Alan Delwich, 210 Linda Vista. I've thought quite a bit about this, and we have so much passion in our community. Got passionate cyclists, passionate planning commission members, passionate art people, health, wellness, whatever. And we tend to reside in our bubbles. And I think something that could be helpful for this process would be if we intentionally mixed it up a little bit. Like, having all planning commission people doing the code update. We would have had a code update that we really loved on the planning commission, but on that code update committee, we had an art person, we had environmentalists, housing people, a lot of people who didn't come from a background of planning and planning commission and all the code update issues. And I think it made a much better product. And I think that could be really helpful in this process too, like having all business owners be the economic development committee, I think is crazy, because it affects us all. Some of those decisions, we really need to be informed by what other people outside of the bubble think. Likewise, you have a bunch of people who are really focused on housing. You need to get other input. So I don't know if you randomly forced people into different committees. I don't know how we do it, but I think that could be really helpful, whatever we do. And, of course, the magic is finding enough people committed to be involved for the length of time, because that's the other experience we've all had. If we've been on committees, that people burn out. So I don't know how we fix that. But anyway, that's my biggest thought is mixing it up. Not all cyclists on mobility, not all planning geeks on the land use, definitely not all the urban renewal commissioners on one committee, which, you really get it spread out. So that's my biggest thought, I think.
Okay, thank you. Council, maybe got questions for Alan? So, okay. Okay, thank you, Ellen. We appreciate that. Yeah, Hannah, if you'd like to come back. A question that came up is, how do you propose to sample people? I mean, you'd mentioned surveys, and I mean, that's a tremendous challenge. We did with our old public information officer, and we'd hired a contractor to do a public, a survey with the public. I think that was in late 2023, no, 22. And I think we actually got something about 550 responses, I think was significantly useful. But in general, we kind of fall flat on our faces in trying to get a big enough population to, to get an answer. So I don't know if any of you can respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. So I will absolutely share the results of that survey because I think there were two recent ones. There was one really in-depth one and then one less in-depth, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'll make sure Clarion gets all those responses.
And I think we also had one on, it was kind of specific to transportation too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we had several flavors of studies. That would be possibly useful for you.
And I think, Mayor Graham, in response to your question about just sort of how do we make sure we're getting enough input, I think throughout the process, Andy mentioned there's going to be a lot of different, in-person opportunities, online opportunities. I think what we have found is that, we basically have to do all of those things, each round of engagement. So typically when we do online engagement, in addition to in-person meetings, we get 2 to 3 times the amount of participation because we keep it open for a month after public meetings. If we do public meetings 1 week, then we may have an online virtual meeting the following week to kind of have the same information, just a different format, and then have opportunities to weigh in online. So I think we're looking at, kind of tackling it from a lot of different angles. I think one of the challenges with a process like this is just the length of time, as you guys have noted. And so I think we often find that we get a lot of participation once during the process, so I think the timing of that event and, coinciding with, we need the most input at a certain period of time. And I think that second round where we're really talking about those strategic priorities is a critical one. And that's when we're really going to be planning carefully in terms of how do we get a lot of participation in that event. I think the working groups are a way for us to augment that broader, open-ended public comment. But I think we have also had experiences where we have, whether they're working groups or focus groups, where maybe we have a core group of people that are invited each time, but they could still be open to the public. If anyone wants to come and sit in, they're more than welcome to. So I think there are a lot of different ways we can kind of shape those, and we're certainly open to that. You have anything else you want to add, Andy?
I think the only thing I'd add is that we're absolutely going to rely on you all to provide us advice on what resonates best with the community here and, what kind of touch points seem to have traction. So if that there's a certain kind of format of a survey that was well responded to, or if it was a certain time of year, or if it was open for a certain length of time, to Darcy's point, sometimes we have success leaving something open for a month. In some communities, we find that it's helpful to have a sense of urgency, and then folks sort of flock to get online and weigh in. And so we absolutely will lean on you and working group members and staff, of course, to help educate us on what are the things that you have a sense that the community members will be more dialed in on.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, getting back to Matt's question, couple things. One is, I think Councillor Johnson said it, that we often try to link what we do back to the strategic objectives or the vision statements or whatever they're called. I can't remember now, in the Plan Manitou. And I don't think we did, so for instance, on our Manitou Arts, Culture and Heritage, it's a tax that we have now that people can apply and get grants within our community to support one of those things. So we say, okay, you have to have that aligned with Plan Manitou, and you have to literally come up with pull it out of the plan, what it is. Well, you can always find something in there to support whatever you want to do. On one hand, that's very good because that gives flexibility and allows change over time. On the other hand, it seems like it's almost too loosey-goosey for some folks. So I say when it comes to aspects of implementation, that's been an issue for us.
Can I ask a question, a follow-up question on that?
Say again?
Can I ask a follow-up
Oh,
question?
of course.
So I guess there's two approaches in my mind. One is to continue to have many things and many values expressed in the plan, and then use the implementation plan and the strategic plan to prioritize which ones are more or less important, is one approach. And I think probably where we were thinking of leaning, but what's open to discussion. The other is to try to curtail what's actually in the plan. So it only includes the priorities. So I'm kind of wondering from your perspective, which approach might make more sense, or how you would like to think about trying to have more direction and more sort of what's more important included.
My personal preference is to have it broader. I really like having it very broad. But then the prioritization and short, medium, and long range objectives or goals or whatever you want to call them. I think that those are pretty critical. So that would get at a lot of that if that's done well. And then in terms of what strategic priorities would you like to see highlighted? I also have my own personal views on that. I have some pretty strong views, but I think that council is looking to perhaps, I don't know if it's on our agenda for Saturday or not, but I hesitate to give you my personal views if they're not shared by at least 4 council members. So
Let's go ahead. Talk is cheap. Why don't you let us give us your thoughts, Nancy?
Well, my thoughts are I think we've said a couple of them already. It's become very apparent in what we've pursued to date. And I would say that 3 of them are top one is probably transportation and mobility, environment and sustainability, or whatever it's called. And then culture and arts and culture have been and historic things have been very, very important. My personal one is absolutely, I think strategically, I think we need to start looking very strongly at economic development. I think that that's a huge weakness and gap in our actions to date.
Did you want to elaborate any more? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. No, I think those are good points. Yeah, I would encourage council. This is again, I guess my thought is that this is a document that if it has value, it will have value well into the future. That's what's to service. So we should feel free to make comments and discuss things. This is how, I mean, yeah, there's a great quote that I heard years ago, and it was, if you're failing to plan, you are planning to fail. So we are not here to fail. We're here to succeed. Hannah, you made an interesting point here that Mantua has outclassed other cities of its size and larger. So let's keep that up. Council, other comments? I guess not. Okay. So we're kind of left with this the suggested list of membership. I guess my thought would be, council, we're going to talk about some of these kinds of topics on Saturday. We could defer until then at least, and I think I saw some head nods when Alan had suggested kind of mixing things up. So I kind of like to take council's temperature. Do you want to just take these names under advisement and let's think about how this should be structured, or do you want to provide direction tonight? Judith, well, let's say John, and I think then Judith. John, were you raising your hand to say something? Okay, let's go.
Well, I think this is a pretty good start, and I think we ought to at least invite these people to see whether they're interested as a starting point. I mean, I don't think there's anything on it. I mean, I'm challenged with Alan's idea about how to kind of mix things up, and I don't know whether that happens at kind of the micro level in terms of the membership level, or whether it happens where essentially each one of these subcommittees kind of maybe does some kind of pitch or something like that to the others or whatever, and looks for linkages or things like that, at that level. So, I mean, I'm very interested in Alan's idea about sort of kind of getting us out of these little silos a little bit, if only essentially it kind of gets us into a really productive kind of discussion. I think if it just sort of kind of gets us stuck, you know, I think we ought to be kind of careful about that, but I can't imagine how it would be. So I think, that I think this is a good starting list. And I think, in a sense, hopefully maybe this list isn't necessarily a static list. That essentially, if there are people who keep coming and whatnot and contributing and whatnot, it seems like to me that's, add to the membership, that type of thing. Not get stuck on, because there may be some people that we invite that kind of burn out really early or don't contribute all that much. And I think that's one of the geniuses of Manitou is that people suddenly kind of find out there's something going on, and they find out that this is a great place to contribute, and it kind of opens other doors for them to contribute in the community as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this community is amazing because we have so many knowledgeable and willing residents who have some expertise and skill sets that are very useful. And so, of course, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want these people to be, kind of the foundation of some of these groups, but I do really appreciate Commissioner Delwich's suggestion, but that almost begs inviting people to apply. So, I mean, if we're going to, I'm trying to, in fact, been trying to percolate this in my mind because I try not to put out an idea without having some kind of proposed solution to how we would make this happen. But if we're going to invite people and ask them, would you like to participate? And if so, what interest do you have, given these, so I don't know how we would implement that, or if it would be just too heavy a lift to open it up to interested applicants per se. So have you considered that as a possible idea? I do want to say that I really appreciate starting with the department heads. I mean, that was smart because I appreciate that, there's so many moving parts and it takes a village, including staff, to make this happen. So, but if we're going to invite and kind of have these unique, diverse groups, the question is how do we make that happen, and how do we entice people to maybe join a group that is a little bit outside of their comfort zone or, wheelhouse and contribute in that fashion. So I'd like to see it happen. I'm just trying to figure out how it would happen. So.
Thank you, Judith. Julie?
Well, it seems to me that we may have to decide if we want this by invitation only, or if we want people to volunteer. If we want people in the community to have an opportunity to volunteer, it seems to me our public information officer could put out a blast, maybe even with a link, and say, if you're interested in joining a committee on any of these categories, we're not talking about 1 or 2 or 3 time public engagement for your input. That's different. But if you want to be on a regular committee that's probably going to meet once a week for the next year, sign up now. And then we could look at it that way, as opposed to exclusively inviting the folks on the list. I think it's a wise, smart move to start with inviting those folks on the list. There's no reason not to invite them, but I like the idea of opening it up to the public and see if other people would like to volunteer, or like Alan said, maybe cross-pollinate. Maybe they're already being invited to be on the mobility committee and they look at the public information, posting on Facebook or something, and they decide they also would like to be on the environmental sustainability committee as well. So that's one way we might be able to do it.
Thank you, Julie. Natalie, did you have something, or? Okay. Michelle? Yes, I'd like to give staff an opportunity to comment. Denise, nothing? Just a minute. Becca, you're back there. I suspect you're here for something else, but you've got a lot of tribal knowledge. Would you like to say anything relative to this? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Beck. I should, yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of singled you out there. Well,
Becca Davis, Finance Director. I was saying, I think Alan's suggestion was intriguing, that we could stir up new ideas that would not have been thought of otherwise. So I'm not sure how to accomplish it, but it'd definitely be something interesting to explore.
okay. Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. Okay. Okay. And let's see, I think Mayor Pro Tem Fortune made some interesting comments about, how do we get enough people, to where the responses are statistically significant. I'm sorry, I didn't. That's how I wrote it down. I'm sorry. That's I mean, yes, one of the things you said was the usual suspects. We frequently get the same people, and sometimes we have people on several boards and that sort of thing. So how do we give an opportunity for fresh blood? I guess I would be inclined to, as some of the other council members said, to kind of advertise this to the public and see what kind of interest we have. I would. Nancy had mentioned that we should probably give people an idea of what the workload is going to be, how much time would be involved. And in thinking of staff's availability and the pretty ambitious project list that we have coming up in the next year, I would not want to overburden staff members. So that might be Darcy.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to clarify that on the question about kind of time commitment. So I think what we were envisioning is that the working groups would essentially meet 3 times. Each time we have a kind of taking in information, putting together a draft, they would help us refine that. So I think we were envisioning that the working groups would have a fairly targeted role, with the idea in mind that most folks are not willing or don't have the ability to commit to a really intensive timeline. So we want to make the best use of their time and kind of make sure that we're keeping it manageable for folks and for staff.
No, that's a good point, because some people have referred to, service on a committee as the never ending story. It goes on and on. Well, council, let me run this idea past you, and certainly we'd have other ideas, but if we were to ask staff, ask our new PIO person to put this out, kind of advertise it with the idea that we'd be looking at, say, 3 meetings. So let's say 3 evenings or the equivalent thereof. They'd be asked for their input. They might get mixed up a little bit, be taken out of an area that they might be considered a specialist now and put into something else. Would council be okay with that in the near term? Judith?
Yes, and perhaps when that goes out, and because I think that the more we get the community involved in the process, the better the outcome is, most of the time. But perhaps the PIO could say, please list your top 3, committees of interest, and then, so there's some flexibility that they know that they may not be picked for, a committee, but if they can say, I have interest in these 2 or 3, or rank order them 1, 2, 3, that might make it easier to put these committees together. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts from council? Julie?
I just need some clarification. So the committees will meet 3 times, and then there'll also be generalized public input, community engagement 3 times, and those are 6 times altogether. I mean, those don't overlap. Is that correct?
In terms of what we'd be talking about each round, they would be the same, but they're we would do public meetings in addition to the working group meetings. So we would just be reviewing the same material and just getting, more in-depth discussion with the working groups, but we also want to get general public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Nancy?
Yeah, I just wanted to support John Shada's concept about how to cross-pollinate the groups. I've done that where, you have the specialists on each of the work groups, but then you somehow bring them together or brief them out, and that's worked. I know I've done that previously and it's worked very effectively. So I did appreciate that idea. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Denise, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to mention, which I think is great, you know, we talk a lot about the same people come together and they give their perspectives, and sometimes it's hard to hear the whole community. And that's part of this Plan Manitou, is being able to hear everybody and not just special groups. And that's why the survey and the pop-ups is going to be so important, because we're going to hear from people that we may not normally hear from. And that will be part of what we'll bring back to you. I know when we did the library and fundraising, it was really important to be out in the community and talking to people that normally didn't hear things, and to have them hear what was going on. So I'm excited that we're looking at many different avenues for the public engagement, not just one, because there are some individuals that attending a meeting is almost impossible, but doing a quick online survey is much more doable.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Okay, I think, yeah, go ahead, Judith.
Just a question. Will the final decision on what the makeup of these committees will be, will that be a council decision? Staff-led decision? How will that be determined?
I don't know if that's been discussed. I would think, I mean, typically with advisory boards and so forth, those are council decisions. And I think we would probably want to have, pretty strong influence on it. I mean, ultimately, I think that, this is going to be approved by council, hopefully by the end of this year or early next year. I guess that'd be my thought, but certainly if the people have other ideas, we're here to listen.
I just
Matt?
want to say that I agree. And this is, I think, one of the most important things that we will undertake this year into next. And it's going to be a living document that's going to live with us for a while. So it's got a very high level of importance. So I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. And Natalie?
I don't want to dive too deep into the details, but I'm hoping I don't recognize a lot of the names. And so I don't know if we're going to be reviewing their JOT form applications or how we'll know who they are, but I'm planning on inviting people that have never been on anything with the community before. So I don't know how that's going to work. So I just wanted to throw that out there of I mean, we could scan this one and know everyone, but I'm hoping the one we're actually looking at, I won't recognize a lot of the names. So I don't know to what degree we're getting involved in the application. So I just want to throw that out there. That's all. But I agree that we should have the final, I mean, I don't have a problem doing that, but I just don't know how we do that if we're really trying to reach out.
Right. So what was the big word we all heard during the pandemic? It's unprecedented. We did this 6 years ago and we hadn't done it before. So when I say we, most of us weren't involved. So I guess we're doing it again, and it's still with a certain degree of unprecedentedness. I guess my thought would be the direction would be to ask the PIO to advertise this or publicize this effort, that we would ask people to identify 3 areas of interest, given the subject areas. We would ask for a commitment of 3 meetings. We would look for some cross-pollination, that city council would set the final composition of the group. Those would be my thoughts. If anybody's got another idea or better idea, I'd be happy to listen to it. Julie?
Well, in that case, we probably shouldn't invite the people who are on the list, because you don't want to invite them and then have to uninvite them later if for some reason there's not consensus. So I would just throw that out there, since we're going to reserve for city council to make the final decisions. And then anyone who's interested might be encouraged to also send a letter of interest or a little, paragraph like they do when somebody wants to join PARAB or OSAC or anything else, and then have the link go back to the consultants, I guess, for them to tally.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea. It is pretty awkward to invite people and then to have to uninvite them. And I mean, and frankly, some of these people, I can pretty well imagine they would step up to the plate because that's what they do. But they've made a lot of contributions and may
Well,
not be.
and the fact that their names are already out there, in the public and in the atmosphere, out here in the packet and everything, is already a little bit of a, like if somebody said, "Oh, I'm so excited I was included. Too bad you voted against me." So I guess I would say we shouldn't maybe publish any other potential names until we have our meeting and decide.
Okay, I would, yeah, I think that's a good addendum to what I thought. What else? Is that, we have a strategy then? Okay, I think we have a strategy. So we'll ask the Denise, if you could direct Mitchell to promote, publicize this. We would ask people to be involved, a commitment of 3 meetings, 3 areas of interest, the idea that they might get cross-pollinated, and we'd ask them to submit a letter of interest. And we won't invite the people who were on this list. Certainly if they want to apply, that's fine. Is council okay with that? Okay, that's direction then. Okay. Did you have anything else, Hannah?
Yeah, we do have a couple of next step slides, and then I just want to make a couple closing comments, if I may.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the first one is to update that we will not be having working group meetings on March 12th. That was a tentative date. So I think we're going to need a few weeks to work through this with the PIO and kind of get that blessed. So as I mentioned, the schedule will be a little bit fluid, but I think we can work with that. We will still plan to do a work session with Planning Commission on the 13th, though. A similar conversation as we've had with council this evening, just to really kind of get their perspectives on what's worked well and what hasn't, what they hope to get out of the plan update. So to be determined on the timing of our engagement efforts, but that is all we have. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And just to close, I just wanted to thank the city council for this amazing opportunity that I've had working for the city of Manitou. And I apologize, I've gotten a little emotional every time I've told one of our boards or commissions. I've just grown a lot. So I appreciate the feedback, the guidance, and moving into a leadership role has meant a lot. So I appreciate that. And also, even though I won't be here to lead this project, I have full confidence in this team to make it happen and with our planning department. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And would council like to make comments since this is Hannah's last city council meeting?
Thank you, Hannah. Sorry.
Nancy?
Yeah, it was Hannah. It was great when you came on board. You created a high functioning planning department, which is something that we desperately needed. And so great job and good luck in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Judith.
Hannah, your tenure here has been brief. However, I have to say that I have really admired your professionalism, your courtesy, the way you present yourself. You have raised the bar for your position, and I'm sorry that your new office was not enough to keep you. But good luck in your next chapter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Natalie?
I just wanted to reiterate something Alan said earlier, but thank you for being Manitou's planning geek. I appreciate it.
Okay. And I saw Alan waving his hands back there. So Alan, I think why don't you come forward? It's a good opportunity here for the Planning Commission chair to make a comment.
Yeah, I was sort of trying to count up how many planning directors I've experienced in my years on the Planning Commission. I think it's 9 or 10, depending. If I count one person twice, it's been 10. And Hannah's been unmatched. You know, we've had good planning directors before, but going to like a Planning Commission meeting and her calmness and professionalism is just unmatched. It's hard to talk about it, but she really has raised the bar, and we're all going to miss her. And she, you know, we were very fortunate to have her at a time that we really needed to get things under control. And, you know, I was saying to someone today that at this point we have, without debate, the best planning department in Southern Colorado. I don't think there's no argument, and it's because of Hannah.
So we're very fortunate.
Thank you, Alan. Were there other counselors that wanted to speak? Don't. Michelle, did you?
I'll just keep this short and sweet so I don't get emotional. Hannah, just thank you for everything and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one more thing, and that is you got the land use development code over the finish line. And that only took like, what, 20 some odd years. So kudos to you for that.
Anybody else? Yeah, Denise?
Yeah, Hannah came in during a very difficult time and the code update was the time that she came in and we were in the middle of it and it was not going well. And we've really truly got that approved due to Hannah. And that took probably 15-hour days for about 4 months, if not longer, to get it through. And so Hannah is really, as you said, has raised the bar, has been a great leader, a great department head, and really has worked well with everyone. And so she will be missed. I've told her the door is always open if the opportunity ever arises again for her to come back. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Hannah, thank you very much. If we had, I guess with the Olympic gold medal is about the equivalent reward for getting the land use development code done after 20 years. So thank you very much. Good. Thank you, everyone. Great. Okay. We do have a hearing and then eventually an executive session. I was wondering, council, we could either take a break now or we could push on and then take a break before the executive session. Want a break now? Okay, we'll take a break. Okay, let's be back at 20 of. Yeah, I guess we can get started again. Okay, our next item of business is a hearing. This is second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 0224, an ordinance amending sections 3.32.040, 3.32.050, and 3.32.060 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning the mayor's participation in the purchasing process and clarifying the bidding requirements. And for that, we have our finance director, Becca Davis here. Becca?
Good evening. Becca Davis, Finance Director. Tonight, I'm bringing ordinance 0224 for second reading and public hearing. Now, this ordinance removes references to the mayor in the procurement code and clarifies that section 3.32.040 and section 3.32.050 apply to purchases over 50,000, and that section 3.32.060 refers to purchases over 5,000. So it would be between the 5,000 and the 50,000. And really, that is all this is doing. And I think everybody should be very familiar with it by now. And are there any final questions that have come up in your minds since the last meeting where it was at first reading? I would love to answer them.
Council, questions, comments, size of relief? Guess not. If there's no objections, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Public comment portion of this public hearing is open. Anyone in the audience is welcome to speak to this matter. Have we received any communications regarding this? We have not received any communications regarding this. It appears we have no one wishing to speak to this. I will close the public comment portion. Get back to council. If we have no further questions, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. Julie?
I move to approve ordinance 0224.
Do we have a second? Okay,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Very good. We got her done. Okay. So we're to that portion of the meeting where we receive or act on council correspondence. Does anyone have anything? Any council correspondence, anything? I will mention, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Just, I'm starting to get concerns again about driving too fast on Crystal Park Road. So I don't know if I haven't seen the speed thing up there recently or any police up there recently staking the place out. So it may be time to scare people.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Thank you. I just have two things. One is a suggestion that our public information officer advertise the fact that the pool and the fitness center is now free for Medicare recipients. I read that in the city report, but I thought it should be publicized because that's huge news for our aging population. The other thing also pertaining to the fitness center is I'm told that there were only 2 treadmills in the fitness center, one of which has been broken for quite some time. And I've had 4 different people ask me, what does it take to get that broken treadmill fixed or replaced? And so I don't know if there's money in the budget to look at that just to keep things going. I know we're going to do a major overhaul at some point, but I think now that we're inviting all these seniors to come in, we might as well have working equipment. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
Is it for all Medicare recipients or is it for Silver Sneakers?
It's Silver Sneakers, that's the program, but but it did read Medicare, so I'd have to go back and look,
Careful
but it's the
because
Silver
It's
Sneakers
only
program.
those with certain supplemental. It's not all Medicare that can get it, unfortunately.
And they might want to not use the word Silver Sneakers because they eliminated that program and now they have a new name for it, but it's the same darn thing. Thank you.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. Natalie?
I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow at Adams is Chat with the Chamber at 8:30 a.m. if anyone is interested in that. And then the following Wednesday, the 28th, is Cookies with Crane at 8:30 a.m. at the Manitou Arts Center.
Okay, thank you. A couple things. The Colorado Municipal League is having a town hall meeting tomorrow night. I believe it's online, it's remote. I think it starts at 5:30. You can register until 4 o'clock tomorrow. So you may have gotten an email from CML. If you'd like, I can go ahead and forward that on. I believe it's any elected official from a participating municipality is allowed to participate. We have that. Also, next week, we will not be meeting on Tuesday. Since we're gonna meet on Saturday, we're gonna take next Tuesday off. So if you can clear your calendar for the 27th and do whatever you want.
Well, Mayor, can you tell us again, what is a start and end time for the Saturday meeting?
It's Saturday, yeah, we'll start here at 8:30 and we'll do a little informal breakfast. We should get down to business at 9 o'clock. And then the plan is to finish by 3 o'clock.
Okay,
And if we, as we usually do, if we feel like we're at a stopping point, we don't have to push till 3.
thank you.
So good. And the food service, Denise, do you want to comment on that?
I don't know what we're having, but it's coming from Adams. So we make sure, because I know several of you have food or dietitian needs. And so I know Lisa sent that out.
Okay, so if we've responded to Lisa, we should be okay. All righty. That was all I had. It looks like that's everything council has. And so the city administrator's report.
Just a couple of things. On Friday, I spent a couple of hours on the CML legislation and items that are going to the bills that are going forward. And there were a couple that I think you guys are aware of. That's the ADUs. That is a concern. Also, the core request information is going forward, but I don't know if it's going to make it past the initial one. Those were the two big ones that I saw. And then the meeting tomorrow night is also for city managers. So it will be elected officials and city managers attending the city hall meeting with Kevin at that point. Other than that, I don't have any further update. Thank you.
And actually, I just checked that email because I was going to forward it, but I see it's now just for mayors, city managers, and city clerks. So I apologize for that. But if something exciting happens, I'll try to bring you up to date in the future. So, okay. Great. So the last item we have for this evening is an executive session. I'll go ahead and read it and then I'll seek a motion to move into executive session. An executive session to discuss a personnel matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment, unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the City of Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter, specifically for the purpose of interviewing a city clerk applicant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion is second. Let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so we'll move into executive session and we'll start that as soon as we can make the transition. Thank you.